President Trump fired more than 17 inspectors.
Taxpayer money be used to create a crypto reserve.
Activated a state's National Guard force.
Damn, I don't know what the laws are.
This inflames the situation.
747 jet as a gift from the Middle Eastern country of Qatar.
There's something different this time around. Now, when Donald Trump was elected, when I was in high school in 2016, one of the most telling descriptions of his first few months in office actually comes from Donald Trump himself on the Joe Rogan podcast.
It was really somebody that not only was new to Washington, but was new to politics. I had to rely on people, but that I didn't know that well because I didn't know them that well. Biggest mistake I made was I picked some people. I picked some great people, but you don't think about that. I picked some people that I shouldn't have picked. I picked a few.
Essentially, Donald Trump said, when he became president, he didn't know the first thing about government.
And how did you know who to appoint?
Well, I didn't. I had no experience.
What to do, who to talk to, how the system worked, how the structure works. Because Donald Trump was the same person in 2017 as he is in 2025, but there's a few key differences that help him move a lot faster, that's helping the system break down even more at a rapid pace. Because Donald Trump, for better and for worse, has learned a lot over the past 8 years. Some from his own experience, others from experience gained by other dictators or wannabe dictators across the world. The truth is, there are multiple reasons that Trump is so much better at fascism this time than he was last time. So let's understand why, along with what we could do about it. The reason this is so important is if we understand what's different this time, there can actually be a genuine, and I don't mean Chuck Schumer screaming at a rally, "We will win. We will win. We will win. We will." There could be a genuine response to combat some of the erosion of our democratic institutions. I don't even really care about the norms. People talk about the norms, but more importantly, the civil and social fabric that keeps America together, away from chaos, the rule of law, those kinds of things. And there's 1,000 different things that Trump has probably learned over the last 8 years, and there's 1,000 different people that want their portion of the grift. But there's really 5 key differences between that first term and what's happening in this term to help us understand exactly what is different this time around and why things are actually turning out with such a different outcome. The first is just purely experience. When Donald Trump went on Joe Rogan and he talked about his first couple days not knowing how government worked, of course, because he hadn't spent any time in government. He was the most inexperienced person to ever hold the office of presidency at that time. But now, he's pretty much experienced as most other people because he spent 4 years in the office and then another 4 years outside of the office controlling one of the 2 major political parties in the United States of America. So he was able to learn exactly how the system works. And I don't mean that from an academic perspective. I'm sure if you could ask Trump, hey, what does the parliamentarian do? What is the process of how a bill leaves committee and gets onto the House floor? He couldn't give you any of those answers because that's not the executive's job. But I think he does understand the executive branch a lot better this time because the executive branch is more about personnel, who's in charge, who's making decisions, how they're making those decisions that dictate the success of any executive administration. This is why Ronald Reagan was a decent executive because he was known for being the delegator, letting other people take care of things. And Trump does a very similar thing, but he focuses a lot less on merit, a lot less on who is just the best or most qualified, because in Trump's eyes, or in Trump's world, the most qualified person is the most loyal person.
I'm like this great loyalty freak. I'm loyal to a point of the absurd.
Doesn't matter if they really have a keen understanding of the agency that they're gonna run. It doesn't matter if they have resume that can outcompete anybody in the world. That's not what it's about. It's about whether or not you have loyalty to the king himself. And the reason Trump understands that so well is because a lot of things that he wanted to do in his first term that probably protected Americans and our civil liberties really stopped what's happening right now from happening 5 or 6 years ago. The fact that his first term he was surrounded by people who not only understood the ins and outs of executive branch and legislation, but they're people who had a deep yearning and respect for the Constitution and, more importantly, rule of law and civil liberties. So when Trump's worst impulses happened in his first term, there were people like John Kelly, even John Bolton, Mick Mulvaney, Mike Pence to step in and check his worst impulses. Now, this actually probably helped Trump in a lot of ways in terms of maintaining popularity because he's not doing the most outrageous things. But at the same time, Donald Trump feels that he's not being able to get everything done nearly as fast, as quick, or as rapidly as he would like. He has these guardrails in the form of people who care about the Constitution. So this time around, Donald Trump has understood that personnel, who's in charge, is much more important than policy when it comes to the executive branch. Because the president could dictate policy, whether or not you got personnel. That's going to help you ignore a court order, for example, or cover up information that you said you were going to release, or change their mind on things that they've said in the past.
In 2016, you called your running mate Donald Trump unfit for the nation's highest office, and you said he could be America's Hitler.
I think that this election is really having a negative effect, especially on the white working class, right? Because I think a lot of these grievances are legitimate, but what it's doing is it's giving people an excuse to point the finger at someone else.
All those kind of things, he understands significantly more than he did in his first term. So experience, the fact that he's been to a training ground, is absolutely imperative. And that leads pretty directly into the second one that we're going to call enabler. He's got experience, but now he needs people to enable the worst impulses. People that are willing to ignore court order. People that are willing to go out and literally make up stories on behalf of Donald Trump.
The American media totally ignored this stuff until Donald Trump and I started talking about cat memes. If I have to, create stories so that the American media actually pays attention to the suffering of the American people, then that's what I'm going to do.
And this is where it kind of coincides with the loyalty that we just spoke of, because these enablers, the Stephen Millers, the Hegseths, the J.D. Vances, people who aren't necessarily known for being paragons of moral virtue, what they allow you to do is not only act on your worst autocratic authoritarian impulses without checking you, but the beautiful thing about these enablers is they're not just there to not say anything or sit back and not stop you, but the enablers enable you. They actually make that process significantly easier. If you want to disobey a court order, a lot of times the president can just say, I don't know what you were talking about.
I don't know when it was signed because I didn't. Well, I don't know about it. I mean, obviously, I'm not involved. I don't know anything about it.
I've never heard of that case. Well, we're looking into it. We're looking into it very strongly. While his enablers, or the agency heads that he's appointed that are loyal to him instead of the Constitution, could act out some of the worst impulses. Now, that's something that's happening on a level when it comes to the administration, where you also have people that when Donald Trump says a lie, the enablers, instead of saying, hey, I don't agree with Trump here, I think he got that wrong, can actually turn that lie into reality for around 30% of the population.
In Springfield, they're eating the dogs, the people that came in, they're eating the cats, they're eating the pets of the people that live there. And this is what's happening in our country.
So there's much less of an incentive to have to tell the truth, to have to obey court orders, or honestly have to give real, genuine, fact-checkable information to the populace. When you can have enablers go out there and parrot or microphone or give a platform to some of the most vicious either lies or untruths or direct propaganda. And enablers aren't just in the administration. Enablers happen all throughout society. Sometimes it's just people promoting lies on social media, or pointing out or helping scapegoat immigrants, telling lies about a certain immigrant that was here under legal status, but you need thousands of people online saying the opposite, so you got enough plausible deniability to remove them from the country, even though the Supreme Court said that you have to do the exact opposite. Enablers could also come from people who are entirely outside of government. This could be business people, social media influencers, sometimes even foreign government officials, heads of state, or businessmen who might cut the president a check, who might cut the president a kickback, who might do favors for the president in exchange for being inside his good graces. And these enablers, whether they're inside the government, close to the president, or never met him at all, are really the crux of the entire authoritarian playbook. Because as much as we like to think of a strong man dictating everything from the top, controlling every little piece of his empire, as they say in Secession, that's not how any type of government or any type of organization works at all. A dictator is only as strong as the people around him are blindly or willfully loyal to them. And that's something that we're going to really see tested over the next couple years. There's always an incentive for people around that power or who could benefit from that power to want to do favors or shade the truth or completely shut their mouth when things are going wrong just so they could get a small piece of a very corrupt pie that is growing. The next one is something that Donald Trump has been able to get through access. For the last 10 years or so, Donald Trump has probably been the most famous person in the entire world. And obviously, for 4 years and now another 4, Donald Trump has held probably the most powerful office in the world. So that's given him access not only to businessmen across the world and foreign deals, but most importantly, access to other autocrats, other people who have operated in what at least used to be full, vibrant democracies, who have turned them into either illiberal democracies or complete autocracies. He's been able to have direct access to them, oftentimes invite them to come stay at Mar-a-Lago, at his house in South Florida. Oftentimes ask them questions, pick their brains, stay up late at night to say, how were you able to seize power in a country or in a state with large institution? The fourth is no consequences. Donald Trump knows this time around, for a couple reasons, that anything he does, whether it's take a $500 million jet from the Qataris that's going to be transferred to himself, or whether it's making billions of dollars in deals via his kids or son-in-law from Middle Eastern countries, or whether it's literally trying to overthrow the United States democracy in an attempted coup in January 6th, there will be no consequences for him. And it's not just in effect because he's made it out, even though he was charged with 91 different felony crimes, but he got it written out by the Supreme Court this time. It says anything he does, as long as it's an official act, can't be illegal. You can't go to jail for it. In the Supreme Court hearing on the immunity case, where they're arguing whether or not Donald Trump can be held liable for acts he made as president, one of the Supreme Court justices asked Trump's lawyers.
Well, what does that mean? Depend on the circumstances. He was the president. He is the commander in chief. He talks to his generals all the time, and he told the generals, I don't feel like leaving office. I want to stage a coup. Is that immune?
If it's an official act, there needs to be impeachment and conviction beforehand because the framers viewed that kind of
if
very
it's an
low
official
risk.
act, is it an official act?
If it's an official act, it's impeachment.
Is it an official act?
On the way you've described that hypothetical, it could well be. I just don't know.
If an official act is not supposed to be criminal, what are we supposed to do if the president of the United States is selling ambassadorships, for example? You want to be the ambassador to France? That's technically an official act. I appoint you, you give me $100 million. And he asks Trump's lawyer, essentially, would that be legal as an official act? And the answer he gave was striking, because the answer he gave was yes. So it's not just the fact that as long as you can keep one party fervently behind you, there's essentially nothing that could be done, because anything that happened to you, it's a liberal conspiracy. Charges, it's a witch hunt. All these felony indictments, I was convicted by 12 jurors of my peers, weaponized by the Justice Department, designed by the Democrats. And when you got the highest court in the land saying, hey, anything you do, no matter how corrupt, as long as it's an official act, we're gonna make sure you can't be prosecuted for, then corruption becomes pretty bold. It becomes pretty brazen. It happens out in the open. Which leads us to the fifth and final, that sets this Trump term apart, that makes Trump so much better at fascism this term than he was in his first term, is simply audacity. Trump is significantly more audacious. I think he knows how hectic the rough and tumble politics can be, and he's taking very, very big swings. He might miss some. We'll see where they land over the next couple years, but he's definitely playing for keeps. And I mean that on a corruption level in terms of how much money he's making off the presidency this time, but I also mean that in terms of some of the favors that he is doing for certain people that have been close to him, whether it's Miriam Adelson, who's given him hundreds of millions of dollars, Elon Musk, who spent $300 million this election cycle alone. There are dozens and dozens of oligarchs that need favors and things like that Donald Trump's perfectly fine with doing as long as he stays on top, because if you know there are not any consequences, why not swing for the fences? The worst thing that could happen is maybe you don't get everything you want, but you still get really rich in the process. You still feel very powerful in the process. You still get to feel like the dictator, the strong man.
You just need me to stand, to be the strong man, the man of action.
The man of action, as Frank Underwood would say. So if there's no consequences, you've got enablers around, you've got experience from the first term, and you've learned through exposure from other people, why not swing big? What's the worst that could happen? You go to jail? No way. So if that's not a consequence, honestly, there is none.